Studios, we have the Cape Town's Human Settlements MMC, Malusi Booi. Malusi Booi, good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us here on the SABC News channel. But firstly, talk to us about this inclusionary housing project. What is it and what is it all about?
Inclusionary housing policy is a policy that we envisage will enable people like our nurses, like your police, and your civil servants who can be able to, and young professionals who can be able to benefit on housing opportunities within the inner city. What do we mean by that? We mean that those people currently, they are unable to afford the housing because of their prices. Now, 1 in 4 people in the city are able to afford a unit or a house that is estimated at 600,000. Now that can't be fair. So we need to deal with spatial equality.
All right. So as it is now, give us an update. How far is the city with crafting this policy? Has it been concluded? Because we understand that it will be open for public comment next week. It's not yet finalized. Internal processes have taken place. Portfolio committee looked at it last week, which I attended, and it gave it a thumbs up. Now what we'll be doing, we'll be going on a feasibility study to look at various options on how we're going to formalize this particular policy, which would start in January 2020. And then by June next year, we should be following also the processes of policy formulation, where issues like public participation and all stakeholders would be consulted and they would have their input. From that particular point, it would go through a process of coming back to Mayco, and it would be processed, and subsequently it would get to council for approval. But why has this process been slower than anticipated? Why the delay? What has happened?
There's not been any delay, but because policy formulation in its very nature is a complex matter. Now it had to go via internal processes where various departments had to have an input on it. So we have reached the stage now where we are in the process of going to the feasibility study and then being in a process of involving external stakeholders.
So in terms of the feasibility study, when is that likely to take place?
That will take place in January next year, and we have given it a time frame of 6 months, because one of the things that we're doing, we want to do whatever is legally possible to make sure that this process is adhered to and also is inclusive in its nature.
So if I remember correctly, here in Johannesburg, when that policy drafting happened, it was received with mixed reaction. A lot of people not understanding how will this unfold. So how will the city ensure that all relevant stakeholders are consulted perhaps before the final draft has been made?
Well, one of the things that we're doing, right now, is to take it to the public through any platform that is possible to us. We have issued also a statement earlier and to all South Africans so that they understand the process at which we are embarking on currently, and would make sure that also adverts would be put on public media to encourage people to have their voices heard. Because what will happen, we don't want a scenario whereby when we conclude this process, someone would feel that they've not been involved. So we'll do our level best to make sure that this process is inclusive. It's inclusive how? It's inclusive that on our newspapers, on our television, on social media, will always be open for them to comment.
All right, and if my memory serves me well, I think some of the property developers were a bit unhappy with certain things of this particular policy. So how will this policy affect property developers in the city of Cape Town?
They are part of the external stakeholders, your developers, your
your institutions, tertiary institutions, and everybody else, and also individuals within the city and the country. They have that opportunity, and no one will be left behind on this particular process. And if there are any comments they also wish to have, or inputs they wish to have at this particular point, we are more than willing to listen to them, and our doors are open for consultation and for engagement, because one of the things we need to achieve an inclusiveness, and inclusiveness, it relates to all of us working together. No, we're not working against developers, nor developers, I would assume they're working against the government. But what is important is the end product, which needs to go out to South Africans. So we need to make sure that we find one another, and making sure that we develop for the population of City of Cape Town.
Have you found one another with organization Funa Gwazi, which launched litigation in the Western Cape High Court to advance this particular policy? Have you engaged with them? How are your relations with that organization?
Well, they've taken a developer. They've not come to my office. We are following a process that is a city process. It has nothing to do with cases with which they take people to court. I'm following my own process, and as a MECO member for human settlements, and as a city. So what we are doing, this process has nothing to do with any or nor informed by any external organization. It's a process that we have initiated on our own, and we will make sure that we follow our own processes.
All right, so we know that, Mr. Booi, that Cape Town is a racially divided city. So the question really is, this policy or the project on its own, how is it going to change the face of the city of Cape Town itself?
Well, our ambition in this process is that, as I've said, we want an inclusive society where, whether you are in Sea Point, we can be able to have a domestic worker having their property in Sea Point or in Camps Bay, or a nurse not having people working outside the city and coming to the city on daily basis and spending a lot of money that they've worked hard for, which is not a lot. We want them to now stay within the city and be part of the people that they work for.
All right, but I think what the public would want to hear is that certainty, Mr. Booi. Do we know which areas of the city will trigger that particular inclusionary housing contribution? Do we know as it is now?
Well, this policy is not targeting any particular area. It's a citywide policy. So we have no targeted area. But what we are doing is to make sure that all areas, it serves all areas, and as I've indicated initially, that we want people to be closer to the transport nodes, to their work opportunities, and to their economic hubs.
All right. Thank you so much there for your time. Malusi Booi is the MMC for Human Settlements at the City of Cape Town, joining us live from our studios in Sea Point. We take a quick break here on